occasion of my mother's Yaarzeit. We also have Diane and Shalhavet are here. Some of my siblings are here, as well as my children. And today marks 32 years from her passing on the 6th of Shvat. And her Hebrew name we should have in mind when we learn today is Sara Malka bat Aharon Avraham HaLevi. And God willing, the learning that we do, it should serve as an elevation for her neshama, for her soul. So the tractate that I chose to study is the tractate of Makkot, which is actually what I'm learning with Shalhevet. And also Rabbi Kurtz is doing a quick tour through Makkot. Little plug for you, Rabbi Kurtz, one page or one side a week. And the basic topic of Makkot, of course, is Makkot, which deals with lashes and one of the punishments that was given to try to inspire people to follow in God's ways. And there's a lot of conversation about when somebody gets Makkot, the nature of Makkot, but also what the tractate deals with is another important case. And that is if somebody kills inadvertently. It's not when somebody, God forbid, kills on purpose, but somebody kills what's called in Hebrew b'shogeg, inadvertently. Then there's a mechanism which is spoken about in the Torah called an individual goes for safety and refuge called an ir miklat, which is a city of refuge. And the Talmud makes the following point, which is in the Mishnah. It says that the person stays in safety in the city of refuge until what happens? It says when the Kohen Gadol, when the high priest dies, then the person is liberated from the city of refuge. The city of refuge is not meant to be just a place where he seeks personal safety, but it's also a place where he is rehabilitated spiritually. Because if he was careless, that's why this happened. And it's a place also where the Levium, where the Levites are, and they would try to spiritually rehabilitate the person. I also want to acknowledge, I think my father is in from Israel with my stepmom, Meryl. They've also joined the call. But there's something interesting that I want to talk about, which relates to mothers. It's like interesting in the portion in the Mishnah. It says on page 11a the following, and we're familiar with this, but I want to explain. It says that the people who are in the cities of refuge went free upon the death of the Kohen Gadol. And then the Mishnah says, Imosehen shel Kohanim, the mothers of the Kohanim, they would provide food and clothing to the people that were incarcerated in the cities of refuge so that these people would not pray for their sons to die. In other words, it's a very odd thing because they were concerned that these people say, the only way for me to get out of here is if the Kohen Gadol dies. So I hope and pray the Kohen Gadol dies. So it seems very odd. The mother of the Kohen Gadol would try to bribe the person and say, if I give you a few fresh chocolate chip cookies and some clothes, maybe they won't pray for my son to die. So there's a lot really that needs to be explained here, but I want to talk about a few things that I thought about and also that related to my mom. Number one, you see from this Mishnah, the power of food to open up people's hearts. I mean, you see that here's a guy who could be relegated to the city of refuge for a longer or shorter time, but it seems to imply that if he gets good food, it may change his whole heart around. And he can never even think about praying for somebody else's demise. And when I think about my mom, and I think everyone that knew her can reflect, she was a person, it wasn't only about great food, of course, and chocolate chip cookies and finger cookies and meat and whatever it is. We had a lot of meat when I was growing up in Atlanta. But rather, it was about utilizing food to create a sense of warmth in our home, particularly on Shabbat. We'd welcome people from our community who always needed a place for Shabbat. My father, who's here, should live and be well. I have vivid memories of helping getting ready for Shabbat and really creating a very warm and welcoming environment, not simply to give people a meal, but really, I think as expressed here, a Jewish mother understands that through the power of food and warmth and friendship, it can truly change somebody's heart. And that's something that I think we all try to instill within our life, but one of the key memories of my mom as well. I also see, by the way, some of the other Chani's kids are here, so good to see you too. So that's the first thing, which is with the food. The second I think about is here, really the Mishnah describes the power of tefillah, the power of prayer. If you think about it for a minute, the whole concept behind the mother of the Kohen Gadol giving this person food was recognizing that these people that are in the city of refuge, that their prayers actually had power. I mean, the reality is these are people that were guilty of careless manslaughter. They were in the cities of refuge. And you would think, what do their prayers count? But the Mishnah actually reflects a belief that everybody's tefillot count. And I think about that a lot in terms of my mother's appreciation of tefillah. This is something certainly that my siblings are aware of. When we had people over our home for Shabbos, when it came to benching, we'd always make sure to do benching out loud. And my mother would make it a point of doing it slowly so that everybody who was there could participate in the tefillah. And I reflected also really during these past few months about the power of tefillah that my mom instilled within me. Last night when I was davening Mariv, and I said the Shema, it was just weird. I felt this kind of overwhelming feeling of warmth. I just went back to a moment when I was just a young child on La Vista Road, those that know Atlanta, of my mom saying Shema with me before I went to sleep. And during COVID, when we had an opportunity to daven at home, and not in the shul, which is a rarity for me because I got to go to shul, I pulled out a sitter that I hadn't pulled out in years. This is a sitter that I got when I first learned how to read Aleph Bet, when I was in maybe 5 or 6 years old. It was given to me. I, by the way, got a double education. I went to school at the Hebrew Academy of Atlanta, but my father was the principal of the Hebrew school at our shul, and my mother was a teacher. So I don't know if this is true, Abba, but because you couldn't get a babysitter, you stuck us in Hebrew school too. I have no idea. But I went to both. And this was a sitter that I got. It's called Sitter Mufarash. I had not used this sitter in decades. But then when I found myself at home, I figured, let me open it up. And I got this sitter. It doesn't even say the year. It says the sitter is presented by Congregation Beth Jacob to Daniel Cohen in honor of his mastering the Hebrew alphabet. Signed Rabbi Herbert Cohen. And then signed, it doesn't have my mom's first name, Mrs. Herbert Cohen, who was my teacher. But I cherish the sitter, and I just, it meant a lot to me, and it kind of awakened with me the power of tefillah that my mom conveyed to me. And just one other point also regarding tefillah is that I think we all spend a lot of time davening for our family, children, God willing, grandchildren. And it just awakened in me. I'll never know the impact of all the tefillot that my mother, a blessed memory, had for me and for all of us. And I cherish those tefillot as well. The third thing that this Mishnah awakened within me regarding my mom is a comment of Rabbi Mordechai Kamenetsky. He said, do you really think that for cookies, this fellow will decide not to pray for the demise of the Kohen Gadol? Like, what's going on? I mean, how good were those chocolate chip cookies? But he actually says something else. He says that the role of the mother of the Kohen Gadol was not simply to give cookies, but she became a caregiver for all of the people that were incarcerated in the city of refuge. She was a woman, obviously, who had a very high profile, but she was motivated to help strangers in this city. And the idea is that once the people that were there saw the kindness that she gave to every single human being, it would awaken within them a desire for life and not, God forbid, in any way to daven for somebody's demise. And that was something also that was very much a part of my mom, as I mentioned today in the Living the Torah moment. Somebody once said about my mother, she was a stranger to no one. She really tried to connect with everybody, whether it was in the school that she taught, Yeshiva High School, people that she just met in the street, always had an upbeat smile for them, and certainly was a person who exuded kindness to every person, regardless of their background. The final point I want to make before I conclude the Mishnah is not only related to the mother of the Kohen Gadol, but one other interesting thing about the city of refuge. If somebody, God forbid, killed somebody by accident, how would they know where the city of refuge is? I mean, let's say that happens, God forbid, somewhere in Israel. How would they know where to go? There was no GPS, there was no Waze. Like, how do you get to the city of refuge? I'm going to ask Sari Kirshner. How would they get to the city of refuge? Unmute. We want to hear from you, Sari. She
We don't
doesn't
know.
know. Okay. Well, it's interesting. The Talmud says actually they had street signs all over Israel to let people know how to get to the city of refuge. But what's fascinating is that when it came to getting to Jerusalem, the Talmud says there were no street signs as to how to get to Jerusalem. So the rabbis comment, why were there no street signs to go to Jerusalem, but there were the city of Makkot? Because if somebody, God forbid, murdered somebody or killed somebody by accident, it's very embarrassing. You don't want to say, oh my God, I just killed somebody. How do I get to the city of refuge? I mean, nobody wants to be in a position to start asking people that. But to go to Jerusalem, we want people to engage in conversations with others to say, you're going to Jerusalem? I'm going to Jerusalem? When was the last time you were in Jerusalem? And speaking about Jerusalem became part of really what was supposed to be on the lips and mouths and hearts of the Jewish people. And I think about that with my mom. And again, my father, he should live and be well. My first trip to Israel was with my mom. It was for my bar mitzvah. I went with Ellie and my cousin. My mom's parents went as well. And they certainly raised us in that way of a love of Israel. And thank God we have 3 daughters made Aliyah. But just one last point, I still remember that when we were in our house in Atlanta, when we walked down the steps, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a big poster of Jerusalem literally on the ceiling of our house, so that every morning when we walked from the upstairs to the downstairs, we couldn't help but look at the walls of Jerusalem. So that was a very strategic way to make sure that we never forgot that all roads lead to Jerusalem. And I'm sure my mother's getting a lot of nachas from the fact that her grandchildren and her family are so deeply committed to the love of Israel. So I just share that as a few memories and things that I carry with me, and I'm sure there's so many others as well. I just want to conclude with the end of the tractate, which is a beautiful message of nechama, of comfort. This is actually one of the most oft quoted Talmudic statements, and it's about the great sage Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was known as the ultimate optimist. He was a person that never lost faith. And the last story is really connected to very much of his whole attitude towards life. We're all familiar, it's hard to believe, but in a few months from now is Lag BaOmer. Right? Lag BaOmer. And Lag BaOmer marks the end of the period of mourning from Pesach till Lag BaOmer of the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva that died. So there's a well-known question, which is, okay, they stopped dying in Lag BaOmer, but why is that a day to celebrate? Stop the mourning, but why is Lag BaOmer a day of celebration? So the rabbis comment that on Lag BaOmer, Rabbi Akiva decided to ordain 5 additional students. And he had every reason to throw away everything. His entire life work was shot. All of his students that he had counted on for his legacy were gone. But rather than lament the problem, on Lag BaOmer, we celebrate his hope in the future. And he said, you know what? If I can ordain 5 new students, and this is a way to perpetuate the link of the Jewish people, that's what I'm going to do. And he made us all realize, and this is a quote that I had read, he didn't let his inability to explain stand in the way of achievement. We don't understand all of Hashem's ways, but he understood that he had to try to move forward. And I think that was my mother's approach towards life, and certainly a strong dimension of what gave, I think, all of us chizuk after my mom passed away so quickly 32 years ago. So I'm going to conclude with the last episode in the tractate, which speaks about Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis in the aftermath of the second Beit HaMikdash are walking around Yerushalayim. And the Gemara says when they reached Har Sophim, they rent their garments. And when they came to the Temple Mount, they saw a fox emerging from the Holy of Holies, and they started to cry. But Rabbi Akiva laughed, and they said to him, why are you laughing? And he said to them, why are you crying? So they said to him, we're crying because it says about this place, the Temple Mount, that even a non-Cohen who goes into this place will die. And here there's a fox that's running through it. How can we not cry? And Rabbi Akiva said to them, that's the reason why I'm smiling. Because it also says in The prophets. I will summon trustworthy witnesses for myself, 2 prophets. One is the prophet Uriah and the other is Zechariah. What's the connection between Uriah and Zechariah? Uriah lived during the time of the first Beis Hamikdash and Zechariah during the second Beis Hamikdash. They seem to be disconnected, but rather the Gemara says that they're interconnected in the following way. In Uriah, the prophecy, it says that there will be a time when Zion, Jerusalem will be plowed over. And in Zechariah, it says that the streets of Jerusalem will have old men and old women sitting there once again. And that quote from Zechariah is, I'm always moved. When you go to the Jewish quarter in the old city, hopefully, God willing, we'll get there soon. It's been a long time. But there's a beautiful area where there are children playing in the Jewish quarter. And this quote from Zechariah is there, that in the time of the redemption, you'll have old people and young people all there. And Rabbi Akiva said that until the prophecy of Uriah was fulfilled, I was afraid the prophecy of Zechariah of redemption would never be fulfilled. But once I saw that the prophecy of Uriah was fulfilled, and there was destruction, and there is a fox that's running through, I know for a fact that if that was fulfilled, then the prophecy of Zechariah will be fulfilled, and there will be future redemption as well. And the Gemara concludes and says, Balashon Hazeh Amru, Rabbi Akiva's colleague said to him, Akiva nicham tanu, Akiva nicham tanu. Akiva, you have comforted us. Akiva, you have comforted us. So I reflect on that as a message of nechama for all of us, and certainly, God willing, in the merit of my mother, will never understand the tragedy of what happened 32 years ago, but certainly believe, as my mother did, in the possibility of rebuilding, of all of the light that can come from a very difficult time, and God willing, through the mitzvot and the legacy that she continues to inspire us to live, her memory will be a blessing, God willing, for many generations to come.
Amen.
I'm going to say the Aharons. There's no Kaddish because it's just the 3 of us over here. But I will do the Aharons at this time. Hadarlach Masech the Makkos, Hadarlach Daitalach Masech the Makkos, Daidalach no Tishlamina Masech the Makkos, Tishlamina Lobama Hadev Lambad Asi. Hadarlach Masech the Makkos, Hadarlach Daitalach Masech the Makkos, Daidalach Tishlamina Masech the Makkos, Tishlamina Lobama Hadev Lambad Asi. Hadarlach Masech the Makkos, Hadarlach Daitalach Masech the Makkos, Lo Tishlamina Masech the Makkos, Tishlamina Lobama Hadev Lambad Asi. Yaarzeit of Sara, Senu. Shadhei Torascha Emurasim Balahazeh. Tehei Iman Olam Haba, Chanina Bar Papa, Rami Bar Papa, Nachum Bar Papa, Achai Bar Papa, Abamari Bar Papa, Rafam Bar Papa, Rachish Bar Papa, Surcha Bar Papa, Adar Bar Papa, Dara Bar Papa. Herav Na Adonai Eloheinu as Divrei Toras Mufinu Fifas Amcha Beis Yisrael, V'niyah Nachnu, B'tzetzeinu, B'tzetzei Amcha Beis Yisrael, Kolainu Dev Shemacham Dev Tortecha Mevayis Yechmenu Mitzvotach Yilam Hili, Yilim Sami B'chekecha Leman Lo Evosh. La'olam la'ashkach b'chudach kivam chiyisani baruch atah Adonai l'nchukacha amen 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 selava'ed modim anachnu l'fanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'havasenu shesamcha l'keinu miyoshvei beis hamedrash v'lo samcha l'keinu miyoshvei karnos she'anu mashkim v'hem mashkimim anu mashkim l'divrei Torah v'hem mashkim l'divarim b'telim anu amen l'hem amen anu amen l'kam l'schar v'hem amen l'hem l'kam l'schar anu ratzim v'hem ratzim anu ratzim l'chaim l'aba v'hem v'er shacha she'nemar Va'at Elohim Toridem leVershachas Anshe Damim Umirma Lo Yechatzim Hem Ani Atach Bach. Yaarzeit of Necha Adonai Elohai Kishem Shasan Lasai Masechta Makkos Kain Ta'azreni Lahascho Masechtas Usfarm Acherim L'Samam L'Lamad Ol Ameid L'Shmor V'La'asos L'Kaimes Kol Devrei Talmud Rasecha B'Yava L'Schus Kol Tanaim V'Amarim V'Tamadei Chachamim Yamli L'Zari Shlo Tamash Hatar V'Pi V'Zari V'Zara Zari Ad Olam Yiskan b'misachacha tanacha osach b'shachbacha tishmar alacha v'kitzosi tisichacha kiver yamacha v'yasiv l'shnos chayim orach v'bina b'smala osher v'chavod Adonai oz amo yitain Adonai yivarech es amo v'shalom.
Mazel tov.
Thank you very much for joining. Unfortunately, I can't give anybody bagels right now with cream cheese and all that other food, but you have participated in the Siyum, so feel free to eat on your own and make a bracha and keep my mom in mind. So thank you very much, everybody. I will be doing like a 15 minutes of Parsha in a few minutes for those that want to hang out till 12:45. Yishakov, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Shkoyach.
Baruch Tia. Thank you, Ez. Shkayach.
Shkoyach. Beautiful, beautiful.
Bye.
Hey, Ab, how you doing?
Baruch Hashem, you hear me? Do you hear
I
me?
can hear you guys. Yeah. Wow.
Great. Okay. Mazel tov.
Thank you. Where are you
Mazel
guys
tov.
right now?
You have a beautiful
Okay.
family, all in memory of your mother.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Oh, no, I don't
Oh,
know.
thanks. All right, we'll get going in a moment here. How you doing, David? Good?
No, just close it. Close the phone. Disconnect.
Okay.
I think.
We're all here. We're good.
You opened it up with Chrome? I think I opened it with Chrome. Okay.
Okay.
Can't hang up.
Let me write 2.
Hello, Steve Mainzer. Wow. Oh, how nice to see you. It's so long. Goodness. Wow. What a
That's not
treat.
it.
How are you? Looking good.
Hi, Steve. It's
Oh,
Audrey.
nice.
Audrey, did you
Yes.
lose power?
Did I lose power
Well, not power, the connection to when the rabbi was speaking.
today, now?
Yeah,
No.
I did.
yeah.
I
Who's
did,
that?
Gloria. It's Lila. That's why I
Oh.
shut my video and my mute because I wanted to hear it. I figured you didn't need to see me, but I get frozen every now and then. That's
Yeah,
why.
Yeah,
yeah.
it happens.
I missed
Yeah.
half of it. Because
I
it was
come back.
awful.
You have to go back to the original email